Welcome to the Stay Hungry podcast. Today, we are joined by Jan Trautwein. Welcome. Hopefully I said that right. That was probably terrible. That was probably butchered terribly. As you can tell, I'm very white, so
Good,
try it
good.
there.
Yeah, the German way is Jan Trautwein, but like I just mentioned to you before we started recording, I'm happy with all variations.
Well, now the audience knows from the man himself how to say his own name, so there we go. But I brought you on here because you help to coach founders and leaders on how to grow their revenue by changing their mindset and their subconscious patterns. You worked all the way from startups to companies like Apple that have billions in sales. So you're very qualified on this topic. But to start things off, take us back to where this all began for you personally.
The coaching specifically?
Or it could be just in general, it could be the coaching, your life, wherever you want to take that question, just kind of go for it. So it's a very broad question
okay.
on purpose there.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so it actually all does tie back together. So I come from a German middle-class family. I have two younger brothers. I had a very protected and beautiful childhood without any, big traumatic experiences. I was always very curious and very encouraged by my parents to, just go out and play. And there was not a lot of rules that we had at home. Even when I was a teenager, I could stay out however long I wanted, even with
Wow.
14. And all of my friends, I have to be home at 10 p.m. or midnight. And I think that shaped me a lot. And even the work that I'm doing right now, I really value freedom. And there's the external freedom and the internal freedom. Maybe we talk more about that later. But went to school. In Germany, we have different schools that after the first 4 years you can get into. I went into the highest one. It's not like a crazy achievement or anything, but that's the only one that allows you to study at the university.
Really?
And so,
Okay.
yeah, it's like it's problematic.
Past like high school, you're saying those 4 years.
Yeah, well, 4 years is elementary school,
I
right?
see,
From
okay.
year 6 to 10. And then it has changed since then. I'm actually not exactly sure how it works currently, but it was a big issue because they would determine a child's future at the age of 10. But the
Crazy.
teacher would say, hey, we don't think this child is, smart enough to go to this higher school, but it might be because they're immigrants. They're just struggling with the language. Maybe there's some family issue. And then because of that little, moment in time, they would have, a completely different outlook in life.
So more pressure, it sounds like, because at 10 years old, you're still like a kid.
Yeah, I think most kids, at least I wasn't really aware of it. You just go to school, but then you're just not able to study at the university. There are some other workarounds but the important part here is that I ended up studying because it just seemed like the logical next step. If I can study, why wouldn't I, right? Potential higher earning income and so on. And like I said, I'm very curious, still am, and I was back there. So I ended up studying physics, which was very challenging. I was good at school, good at math, but wow, surrounded by nerds. That was a whole thing. Finished my degree, and then I realized I don't want to be a physicist and academia. It's a lot of work in front of the computer, just, writing
Where
papers.
the jump?
And
Because
so
you went to school for 4 years, and then why the change and not wanting to do it?
Well, I went to school for longer, but the first 4 years is elementary school, and then it goes
I see.
back then it went up to 13, grade
Wow.
13, yeah. And yeah, I had this idea of, I can just do some groundbreaking science with maybe some international people, and we're gonna travel, and we'll be in our lab, and we do some really cool stuff. And then I got a little bit a wake-up call during the 3.5 years of studying that's usually not the case. Usually you sit in some kind of office that's maybe not very inspiring and in front of the computer a lot. So I saw that, I had that feeling in the last, I would say, 1.5 years already. I still finished it, because why not? Good to have a degree. And then I got really interested in entrepreneurship. That was the first time that I ever heard about it. When I was, I guess, in my 20s, early 20s. And that opened a whole new world for me. It's like, wow, you don't have to work for someone else. You can start your own business. Back to the theme of freedom, like that sounded very exciting to me. And I was very resistant to the idea of a 8-hour a day, 9-to-5 job. I had, some holiday jobs. And I was like, that seems like a terrible way to spend the next 40 years of my life working for some company. So I never did that. I never had a job my whole life. I went from studying physics to co-founding my first startup, which was a social enterprise in the space of kindergarten and childcare. So we created an app, never succeeded. And I worked on the startup for 2.5 years. The last 6 months or so, I was quite depressed. I was very stuck in life. Back then, I didn't know that one of the components, at least this is my perspective now, one of the components for happiness, for fulfillment, is progress. If we are stuck, it's very hard to be really fulfilled. If there's a sense of growth, that really helps to feel great.
And by stuck, you mean like the company or what?
Yeah, the company and what I could contribute to the company, because my co-founder, he was the developer. Back then there was no AI vibe coding. Exactly. Otherwise it would have maybe turned out differently, but I just couldn't help with the thing that needed to get done. And we got delayed, and then we got delayed again, and I lost hope, and I was just like, what am I doing every day? It's like I'm waking up, it's the same thing as yesterday. I'm not really feeling like I can make a difference. And that was rough. That was really rough. It's the first time, like I said, I had a very beautiful childhood. The first time I was like, I'm not happy. I'm not happy at all. Actually, I'm waking up, it's like, not again. And it was like, I guess that's what depression is. And so in hindsight, it was the best thing that could have ever happened to me, because that led to a huge spiritual journey, awakening, even like asking myself the guiding question of, how does happiness even work? Now that I'm not happy, I realize I don't even know how it works. I just, I was blessed to be very happy my whole life. And so I never questioned it. So yeah, that led to a huge journey inwards. And the inwards journey, it went along with an external journey to Australia. So I went for 1 year to Australia. I bought a camper van, lived a life of freedom, of adventure, connection to nature. Did my first Vipassana retreat. It's a 10-day silent meditation retreat, and a lot of other things. But
so there's no talking at all for the whole 10 days?
Yeah, on day 10, you can talk, and it's beautiful, because you get to connect to all the other people that you've just seen, and you're like, oh my God, this person looks like they're doing so great at meditating, and I'm like struggling. And then on day 10, you talk, and they were like, oh my God, I was also struggling. So it's beautiful the last day. But otherwise, no, you don't talk at all, other than maybe every second day, one sentence to the teacher. So they will do a check-in to see if you're able to practice what they teach, like in your internal experience in meditation, if you're able to achieve certain states, you could say. So, and sometimes it's just I'm good. And sometimes maybe you have a question, but
it sounds very tough mentally, because you're in the zone 24/7, correct?
Well, yeah, you meditate around 10 hours a day. You get up at 4:30.
Wow.
It's an early wake up call, and there's nothing else you can do. So you're not allowed to bring books, no audios, nothing to write. So if you're not meditating, you can go for a walk. And that's pretty much it. Maybe you stretch yourself a little bit. But because of that, it's so much easier to get into a deep meditative state. Because all the external stimuli that we are exposed to every single day, we have so many conversations. We look at social media, there's so much input. All of that stuff is still like swirling around somewhere, right? So if we try to meditate, we go like, yeah, this TikTok that I saw earlier, or like, oh yeah, I need to get back to this person. Oh, I didn't respond to this email yet. There's so much stuff that our mind can grab onto and it's much more active. Whereas if you literally have no input for 10 days, it's a lot easier to get into a deep meditative state. So it was a very impactful experience for me. I did a second 10-day meditation retreat a few years later, which actually was a lot harder. But yeah, that happened. And then to come to the end of how did I end up with coaching? So I went back to Germany. At the time, my brother started a company. They did a very successful, there's levels to it, but they did a successful Kickstarter campaign. They had 2,000 people pre-order their product and collected around 120,000 euros, a little bit more. And the device was this foam rocket that you can throw through the air with your GoPro inside. And you get very unique shots. Back then, drones weren't that much of a thing, but they were around, and they would just tell everyone before they launched the product or the campaign, no drones involved. And people would just see the images and the videos on Instagram. And they're like, what? Without a drone? How do you do that? So super cool product. I had a prototype with me in Australia. And my brother was going through a rough time because his co-founders left. So I already promised him, if I come back to Germany, I'm going to help you. I'm going to join your startup. This is what I did as a new person, right? Like no sign of depression anymore. I found so much happiness inside of me. Also spending a whole year on your own, that's a transformative experience in itself. So I did this for around a year. And towards the end of the year, I was like, the product is fun. It's really cool. It brings people into nature. You can throw it with your friends. There's a lot of creativity and like filmmaking, photography involved. But the day-to-day work is not that fulfilling. I was just, answering emails and our fulfillment partner and like solving issues, basically, like a startup founder does. But I had this urge to help other people in a more direct way. I went through so much, awakening, and had a much more conscious understanding of how our emotions work, how happiness works, that I wanted to give that to other people. But the funny thing is, I was so in the lane of I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a startup founder, that I couldn't see anything outside of it. So it took a friend that I was supporting as a friend I was just like, I want to work with people more directly, but I don't know, maybe once we have a bigger team, I can take care of the team and, make sure that people are doing good, that they're mentally well and that they're performing well, that they're happy and fulfilled. And then she was like, well, why don't you become a coach? I think you will be an amazing coach. I was like, oh, holy shit, this is a thing? I had no idea, that this is even a thing. And so this is the day I found my purpose in life. It's like I was never so clear on anything. That was around 8 years ago.
Wow.
And that's what I'm doing since then, full time. I was like 100% in from day one. I had to tell my brother that I'm going to leave the company, which was not an easy conversation because, he felt left alone.
Tough.
Yeah. But it had to be done. And yeah, that's the path that I'm on since then.
It's probably very different coaching whereas having like your own company, like feeling wise, right?
It's very different. Because as a coach, of course, I have my own company, but I'm more like a freelancer.
Right.
I'm a service provider, and there's very little in the way I run my business. There's very little overhead. I don't need to do really anything that I don't want to do, that I don't love doing, which is amazing. Whereas if you run a startup, let's say, and you don't have a bunch of co-founders, there's just stuff that needs to happen. And I'm a firm believer that we can get anything or everything that we want in life doing only the things that we love.
Right.
But that means in a lot of cases, we need to learn to love certain things, which is not easy.
Learn to love them. That's a cool phrase.
Yeah, right? Because some people are just like, oh, I have a startup and I just hate sales. Well, okay, with that mindset, with that story, how are you going to do sales and love it? You can't. The only other option is you outsource it, which is not always possible, takes money, resources, and so on. So in my coaching work, I'm very, very happy that I don't need to do a lot of things or basically anything that I don't want to do, because the way that I create clients, and I say create, not find or get, because a lot of people, if they talk to me, they had no intention to ever hire me or any other coach, but only through the experience of actually receiving coaching, or my coaching, they're like, wow, now I can see how much more I could achieve, how much bigger I can think, how I'm standing in my own way right now. I didn't even notice before. Now I'm interested in continuing with that and, starting a proper partnership. And yeah, I do that by offering help for free all the time. I coach so many people for free because that's what I love doing. Rather than spending the same amount of time writing emails or blog articles or, focusing on content, I do a little bit of content also when I feel inspired to, but that's not what I focus on a lot. And a lot of other coaches actually, they say they're a coach, but they're running more like a media company, and they're doing a lot of content, and then they have crew programs and funnels and marketing and all of that. Nothing is wrong with that. It's just not what I love doing. I love helping people in a one-on-one fashion.
Right. So for your clients, do you have like your main focus for what you try and get them to do for them?
I get them to do the things that they want to be doing but are not doing on their own.
So like a delegation kind of thing, because they want to do it but they can't do it right now, you're saying, basically.
Because they're afraid. They're just what is it called? Fighting fires the whole time, the urgent things but not the important things. So when I work with someone, I don't tell them what to do. I'm not an expert in their life. I'm not a coach that is like, oh, look at all of my success. Just do what I tell you to do and you will get the same success. I don't believe in that. I think it's much more empowering for people to find their own path. We're all different. We all have different strengths and weaknesses and preferences. So my job is more to help the person, if they don't know yet, find out what it is they would love to be doing or would need to be doing to get the outcome that they would love, and then help them to actually do it.
Well, we all have these blocks though of either it's fear, procrastination. Do you see lots of patterns for this kind of stops people from doing this kind of thing or that thing typically?
Yeah, there's a lot of everyone is different, but we're also all the same.
We're all very
in a
different
way.
In that way. Yeah, exactly.
But we're also all the same. So we all have an ego. We all have basically a structure in us that doesn't want us to see our fears and our insecurities. So that's why we have excuses all the time, and it's very hard to, and I have them as well. This is why I work with coaches too, to have an external mirror to be like, hey, I think there's something else going on. Then you just didn't have the time this week. Maybe there's some resistance. Maybe you're afraid to do it in the wrong way, or, what other people might think of you. And that's what I help my clients with as well. Well, if we use the term freedom again, to help them create the freedom to actually do the things that they want to do and that they need to do in order to grow their business.
So if I were your client, I say, hey, I'm afraid of doing sales, what would you then tell me to probably do from that point forward?
So that would already be a great start, because a lot of times people say, oh, I just don't like sales. It's just not my thing. Right? So you would be a step further to be like, I'm afraid of it. And see, right?
Because you at least know what you don't want to do, but you need to do it, right? So.
Yeah, and throughout this conversation, I will say a lot of different things that first seem that they are contradicting each other, and that's on purpose, because life is full of paradox. There's I might say a lot of people, they think that they are just not a salesperson, it's just not their thing, when in reality there is fear. And if they would overcome this fear and they would start doing it and they would start getting better at it, they might really enjoy it. That being said, it's also true that, some people don't enjoy certain things. So it's a little bit hard to tell, especially from the outside. This is why self-honesty is so important. So if you would be, is that a real thing? Like, you're afraid of sales, or we could go through some questions to see what we uncover.
Because you're trying to probably balance if it's more like a fear, or if you have like strength, maybe like a different area that'd be like more time. Because you can't be like amazing at like all things, right? You have to pick like your strengths and then go from that point. Because you can be amazing at a few things, but you can't be amazing at all of them, obviously.
Yes. That's totally true. And whenever we do something new, we suck at it at first.
Exactly.
Right. So that's also true. So sometimes people go like, well, that's just not my strength. Okay, not yet, but you can develop it. And it depends on, your example, it depends on so many things. I would not tell you, now do this. Depending on the life that you want to create, the business you want to create, maybe it's worth it to actually overcome this fear and to get really good at selling. And not only getting good, but also to start enjoying it. Because sales, it's a quite charged topic, like sex or like money.
Right.
Where people are like, oh, sales means you need to convince someone and you need to be very pushy and manipulative. That's just the sales that some people do. There's sales that feels completely different, where you're really in service of the person and you just want the best for them. And one of those options is they hire you. But you don't know if that's actually the best option before you get to know them, understand the situation. So, for example, I wouldn't take on a client, even if they would want to work with me, if they had to, sell their car to work with me, but they need their car to run their life, right? So I'm not trying to just get a client. I'm trying to center the well-being, the success, the needs of that person when I'm in conversation, and people can feel that. That's why if they do decide to work with me, they're like, this feels good, rather than, oh, I got manipulated into it, and the next day I'm like, why did I spend all this money?
Right. Something you mentioned was how it's almost spiritual, like the whole like money-making process. I'm curious about that because some people think just the KPIs, numbers, and there's no spiritual part at all to that. What are like your thoughts on that aspect of it?
Do you mean that for
Because you
mentioned
business? You mentioned it's like spiritual in the sense of like making money. I was curious like what that means because some people would say they're both very separate topics, like your spiritual self and like your money making self. They're all very different parts, I guess, of you.
Mm-hmm. So if we start at the question, what is the purpose of life? Which is not a scientific question that we can get a clear, scientifically tested answer to it. But it's also not necessarily a religious question. Like, what is the purpose of life? Okay, so there's a lot of different answers to it, right? There's the biological answer, which is just to procreate, to survive. There is the answer of self-actualization, which I resonate with. It's like, okay, if we're here, how can we make the most out of it? To become the most self-actualized person we can be. Not that there's an end goal and we ever like, okay, now I'm done, fully self-actualized, fully, in my highest potential. But it's a going back to the theme of making progress and the connection between progress and happiness, or growth and happiness. That's something we can use as a North Star to fully actualize ourselves. Now, what does that mean? It means something different for each of us, right? You being fully actualized or more actualized than you are right now will look very different than for me, So maybe it's being a public speaker, or being a singer, or like building something, building a house, building businesses, helping people, philanthropy, dressing in certain clothes, driving sports cars for some people, I don't know, driving, bicycles for others. So to me, what it means is like, okay, we have certain desires and ideas and dreams, and to bring those forward, right? And it could be super small, like, I want to eat sushi today. Okay, cool, right? Rather than, no, I can't do this because I don't have the money. It costs too much. And so this is the connection between the spiritual of we are here to fully self-actualize or to actualize ourselves, and money, because we live in a world where to do anything, more or less, we need money, right? If your true self wants to travel and go to Bali, to go to Thailand, to go to Mexico, and to meet the people there and to taste their food, that costs money. And, dressing up in a more colorful way, more expressive way, and a really nice tailor-made suit costs money. So therefore, there's an argument to be made, or a perspective, that it is our duty to become more wealthy, to become rich, to the degree that we can actualize ourselves. Because if our self-actualization is limited by the funds that we have, right, then we can say our spiritual journey, we can't really become more of who we are meant to become, because we can't buy the clothes, we can't buy the plane tickets, we can't get the training that we want to further develop our skills, for example. Does this make sense? This connection between money and spirituality?
People often say it's like evil, the root of all evil, that money doesn't take you down, it's more stressful, but I think you are right, because it brings you more chances to do what you want to do in life. I'm curious though, how do you know, like, if it's like a problem like spiritually, or like a problem with like your like strategy? Because if you have like a company and it's failing, right, do you know if it's your fault or like your profit's fault? You know what I'm saying? Like, how do you know that way?
So I don't really like to use the concept of fault.
That's fair enough, yeah.
And I'm just going to quickly explain why. Even though I know you didn't mean it like this, but like, what's the cause, right? Like, what's why is it not working better? But I just want to name it, because so many of us are really harsh to ourselves. And when something is not working out, we go like, oh, it's my fault. And so that's being basically not very free internally, because we are we're punishing ourselves, by like, oh, I should have known better, it's my fault.
Yeah.
So that being said, a really great maybe rule of thumb is, if there's another company doing great in the same space, it means you could be doing great. It's quite rare, at least in the people that I'm talking to, that I'm working with, that there's no chance that their business will succeed because it's just completely the wrong business at the wrong time. That's quite rare. Usually the reason why businesses fail is execution. Like, how well are they executing? How fast are they iterating and learning and adapting? And co-founders, they get into fights. That's a huge reason why businesses fail, right? Not because their business model wouldn't work, or it's the wrong time or the wrong market, just because there's internal conflict and then resentment and so on and so forth. Burnout, stress, way too much hustle culture, which, it's maybe not that anyone maybe sees it as a strategy to like, oh, I'm going to hustle my ass off and just grind really hard, even though a lot of people are doing that, but for very obvious reasons, that's not sustainable. And if you want to still run your company in 4, 5, 10 years, then you better find a way that is sustainable. Remind me again, your question was, okay, how do I know?
Well, because if something is failing, you have to think, okay, it's not your fault, but how did it happen, right? If it was my mindset, or if it was like the company's strategy of how we're doing certain things in that company, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's always connected, because let's say the strategy is not the right strategy, okay? Then why are you not changing the strategy? So it goes back to the mindset. So I'm not doing like with my clients, okay, there's a business strategy over here and then there's mindset over here, and let's just work on your mindset for the sake of it. But it's linked together. So if someone, let's say they're pushing hard, it's not working, they're like, oh man, we've been trying everything, I show up, I'm doing the sales calls, just we're not getting clients. Maybe it is the strategy, and maybe they were not open-minded enough to even question that, because they were so convinced 6 months ago when they come up with a strategy that is the right strategy, that they've been like, maybe it's just that maybe I need to hire different people and so on. And so in a coaching session, maybe we uncover, hey, what if the strategy is wrong? Oh, I actually never considered that. Okay, well, we've been going with the same strategy for 6 months. Why don't we try something else? And then they try something else. But it's also possible, the thing that if you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail. So right. If someone is familiar with a strategy, then they want to choose this because they feel confident in the strategy. So there might be internal resistance to like, oh shit, okay, what if the strategy doesn't work and I need to learn a completely new strategy? Like when I started out my coaching business, well, actually way before that, when I traveled to Australia and so on, I always posted on Instagram. I did stories every single day. I was just documenting and having so much fun because a lot of friends and my family, they asked me, oh, can you send some emails with some pictures? I'm like, I'm not going to do that. But if you want to know what I'm doing, what I'm up to, just open up Instagram. You can see what I'm up to there. And so I got some coaching clients also from Instagram because there was a lot of trust, because I was very vulnerable. I was just sharing like, I'm really struggling. I'm out with my camper van. I don't know what to do next. Whatever, might have been going on. Right. And so I built a lot of trust. But then at some point, I realized, I really want to work with more founders, entrepreneurs, people who are doing cool things in the world. And LinkedIn seems to be the better platform for that, because I can just search for them and I can build relationships and get in touch with people that I really want to get in touch with. And so I had so much resistance switching from Instagram to LinkedIn because the whole platform seemed weird and so stiff and everyone is like all professional, and I just didn't know how to, use it. And so there was a thing where, okay, the old way of sharing my thoughts and my experiences with the world was on Instagram. Now it made logical sense to try something new, but it took me months to actually transition. Now I'm on LinkedIn. That's if you go to my Instagram, I don't know when the last post was. I post my daily updates through WhatsApp in the status because I don't want to actually consume Instagram. So I'm not opening the app. Often I don't even have it on my phone, and it gets reshared to Instagram. And if I have other content, thoughts I want to share, I just share them on LinkedIn.
So you kind of changed and pivoted like your strategy then to make that work. Some people, they probably won't do that, right? They're stuck in this one mindset, this one way of doing things, and so they won't learn the new skills, the new strategies for how to go from point A to point C, right? I think in that case, you'd have to hire someone else to do it or leave the company, something in that case, right?
Social media is very interesting. A lot of people are struggling with it for multiple different reasons. There's also this idea that we should just basically be everywhere, on Instagram, on TikTok, on LinkedIn, on YouTube. And for someone who is a solopreneur or a freelancer, that's a lot. That's really a lot. And sure, you can maybe use some tool and copy paste the content, but each platform also works differently. So, this is just one other perspective, but I think for most people, it makes a lot more sense to choose one platform that makes sense for them, that maybe they enjoy using more or where their audience is, and then just focus on that. And if you hit 1 million per year or more and you can hire someone, sure, you can build out a media team and they can repurpose the content and all of that. Yeah. How is that for you? What are you using in terms of social media and distributing the podcast and so on?
First, I'm a really small podcaster. I've been doing this for maybe like 2 months, but it's a thing called Buffer.
Yeah.
So they do
And
it for you. So like it like sends it all like the things out, so you can post like twice a day for each like platform out there.
because the long form content is on YouTube.
So I do both clips and long form content. So you take like this one episode, you take it into like 5 clips, for example, and then those clips go on 2 different platforms through Buffer.
Okay, so just on 2. Is it YouTube
So I right now
Shorts?
basically do YouTube and TikTok. Those are my 2 things right now. So nothing, and I post on LinkedIn like one thing, but it's not like too much on there.
Okay, yeah, cool, right? And you could also post on Instagram or on Facebook and so on. But even 2, I don't know how it is for you if you sometimes check the data and so on. Like that's already quite a bit to manage, even with a tool like Buffer.
Yeah, because you have to then plan out how you're gonna do it. And to your point, they're all different for the platforms, for the audience, for how they do posting. Because if you post the same thing on TikTok and LinkedIn, it's different people. So you have to be able to like repurpose that the right way. I'm curious your thoughts on scaling, because like to your point, if you have like one person on your team, you can't do too much in terms of making money or going from that point. How does one scale from one person to like a whole team in that way?
How to do it?
That's quite the question, right? Because it's kind of like a loaded question, because there's multiple different avenues for how you grow a team and all that fun stuff, right?
Yeah, I mean, what I can say from personal experience, I've hired multiple virtual assistants. We're working with someone right now. She's absolutely amazing. It helps to design a like a process, right? Before just going with the first person, like, okay, I'm going to contact, I don't know, I'm going to contact 20 people. I'm going to see how they even reply. That's a good first indicator if, just how they communicate. And then maybe there's a short call. I often ask people to send a quick video just so I get a sense of, their vibe, basically.
Yeah.
And then there might be a very short unpaid task to get a first little experience, right? It's something that I might do myself first. I track the times, like, okay, this takes 10 minutes. And I say, hey, would you be open to doing this task? It took me 10 minutes. And then I see, okay, cool. This is basically where they detail oriented, that they actually properly read the instructions, how do they communicate, and so on. And then from there, we would do a selection of 3-4 people and then have them all do a paid task. So that might be like an hour long, it's paid, and that has worked really well. I didn't do this at the beginning. I would just, hire someone, and then I'm like, oh shit, I'm not really even prepared to onboard you, and yeah, it was quite messy in the past.
You have a fairly long process then, because most companies, I'm guessing, don't go into that like extent for like a one-person team. I guess it beats doing that than to have to then let them go down the road and then waste all that time, all of those like resources on like the wrong person then. So that makes sense.
Yeah, and also if you hire someone, a lot can shift in the business. I think what a lot of people do is they wait until they're super overwhelmed, and then they just want to hire someone quickly, and they hope that then they have their problem solved. But what happens when you hire someone, you first have more work to do. You need to
train them on how like you work your process, all that fun stuff.
Exactly. And most people, they don't have their SOPs, right? Their standard operating procedures nicely written down. If that's in place, it's a lot easier. You can say, hey, check out this document. This is exactly how you do it. But yeah, so a lot of times, and again, it happened to me as well. I'm like, oh, okay, I need to hire someone. And then I hire someone, but I don't have the time to even train them. And then I'm just like, I'm paying them, but they don't have any work that I'm giving them. And yeah, it got very messy. This is why, in bigger companies, they have longer processes. There's multiple rounds of interviews and so on, because they really want to make sure that they're hiring the right person.
Right, takes all that time and training. Well, you have been fantastic. I feel like your last thoughts with that would be to the audience.
I know you're a young podcast, but
I am.
if you would have to maybe guess or tell me who's in your audience, what are the commonalities of the listeners do you have? Do you have any idea on that?
A lot of them, they either own their own company, or they're a leader, or they're trying to be. So those three things.
So, okay, what comes to mind, because I recently gave a talk at a AI event here in Lisbon, and I got really, really great feedback. And what I spoke about was, with AI, probably everyone who runs a business, at least, is like exploring and trying to integrate it. There's a very big danger to stay in the building phase, which is also the comfort zone, right? So if we are behind our laptops and we're using Claude or ChatGPT, maybe we're vibe coding some solutions, it's very fun. It's very addictive. Have you vibe coded anything?
Lots of stuff, yeah.
Yeah, right. It's very addictive.
Apps,
right.
Yeah, it's fun. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like magic. You see that, and often we then neglect the more scary tasks, which sales, marketing, getting attention, getting out there, talking to people, potentially getting rejected, all of that. So I think nowadays, more than ever, it's very easy to feel productive. Like, oh, I built a whole app, and I vibe coded this. And like, that seems like progress and it feels good in the moment. But how much is it actually driving forward the business? Because I work with quite a few people who are builders with AI, or they have AI first startups. And yeah, that's a common pattern that I see, that I think for that kind of audience, it's a good reminder to be very mindful, to not just do the fun building stuff that's also safe, but to do the needle moving tasks, as I like to tell them.
It's very true. If people want to find you online, where can they go to?
Well, one place is LinkedIn. Just Jan Trautwein, type in my name, and jantrautwein.com. That's my website. Also vibe coded, of course, nowadays.
There we go.
When do you think this podcast will come out? Do you have a kind of a rhythm already?
Like 2 weeks about. So
okay, super easy. No,
yeah.
I'm just because I'm still updating certain sections of my website, so hopefully it looks beautiful and all like polished by then. But yeah, that's the easiest way to connect with me. And there's a link to my Telegram. If someone just wants to send me a message, they can also book a short 15-minute virtual coffee to get to know each other. Yeah, that's that.
There you go. Well, go find him, you guys. Thank you all for being here and tuning in. Until next time, stay hungry.